Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking about The Last of Us Part 1. Now, if this is your first time or you're returning, please take a moment and then go ahead and like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Now, let's go ahead and jump right into this. So, The Last of Us. This game was so good that it was released three times. You had the original that was released in 2013, then you had a remastered version that was released in 2014, and I believe this one there was I guess you can call it a remakester, a polished version that came out in 2022. And you know what? I bought all three. This game was so good they came out with a live adaptation. But you know what? We're not here to talk about that. We're talking about the game. So, The Last of Us tells the story of Joel and Ellie as they work together to survive a long, grueling journey westward across the country in hopes of finding a cure to a fungal plague that has nearly wiped out the entire human race. Okay, let's just talk about the beginning of this game. It started off very slow as far as, just this casual conversation between a man and his daughter on his birthday. And then all of a sudden everything just goes to hell. I mean, I'm talking about just pure chaos. You have just things blowing up, cars crashing into each other, and then, people getting mauled by infected. And then we run into this encounter, the one that's been talked about for years. This soldier is just giving orders to shoot, I guess, people. And this it gutted me whenever I first played. I mean, Joel loses his daughter. So if anything, it sets the tone for the rest of the game. And I'm like, dang, Naughty Dog, that's how we're gonna start the game off. Way to go, man. And I say that because they were not afraid to pull any punches. The Last of Us takes place 20 years after the fungal outbreak, so we get to see how society has adapted to this new way of life. In certain cities, people are still governed by the military, and then there are rebel groups that have formed. Others have come together to form their own society. Then some chose to be alone. I want to give a special round of applause to the developers at Naughty Dog. I feel like they truly outdid themselves creating such a layered narrative outside of the dialogue. Because you also had, other than the main dialogue, you had these optional conversations which gave more insight to Joel's interactions with the characters such as Tess, Ellie, Bill, Henry, and I don't know if he had some with Sam, but that's beside the point. But also too, as a player, you could look around at the surrounding environments and you can see the abandoned buildings being reclaimed by nature. Um, you also have visuals of backed up traffic. Some of the vehicle, like the doors are torn off. You had open suitcases. You had skeletons, and you also had these collectible letters that you could also read. And so what I loved about this, it added another layer of the storytelling. You were able to see what some of the NPCs of the game were dealing with at the time, because I know you visited certain locations like a college or random people's houses, and you got to see and feel what people were dealing with. And I know there was a particular cutscene where Ellie was reading somebody's journal, and she was expressing, as far as her emotions, as far as is this really what people had to deal with? And I thought this game really illustrated that really well. And and I feel like by having those details, it really enhanced the narrative and the gameplay experience for me. So the gameplay experience was quite unique for me. Naughty Dog created the Uncharted series, if you're not familiar. So I was thinking the combat and even the traversal would be similar. Now I've never been happy to be more wrong. Joel feels like his weight, you know, if that makes sense. To climb, to be able to climb high places, you'll need the help of a partner, and to even just jump across gaps. Like he feels heavy, you know what I mean? And I really enjoyed the fact that they did that. Talking about the combat, it feels good too, as far as the aiming and then the weapons, because you definitely have a weapon sway, a really nice detail that they added. Um, a few other details that I appreciate about this combat is that the ammo is limited, so you have to make every shot count, literally. Also, too, you get to craft, items and weapons, found throughout, the cities. So it requires you to be strategic on how you approach combat. So with me, I was more like a 65-35, leaning more towards guns to stealth. So another thing I really enjoyed about The Last of Us was the pacing of the game. The players can go at their own pace. This game felt open, and it was also very linear, so it gave us a chance to explore the buildings for supplies. And I also enjoyed the the spacing out between fights, whether it was between the infected or the humans. Now, speaking of the infected, they came in four stages. You had the runners, the stalkers, the clickers, and the bloaters. Now, speaking of the developers, I keep giving them their flowers because they did such a great job. They did a great job of creating the nature of humans versus the infected. And what I mean by that is the human AI, they were more unpredictable. And to me, in my opinion, that made them that it added a layer of fear, versus the infected, because the human AI, they had this tendency to flank the player, and like I said, that added a layer of unpredictability. Whereas the infected, they were just stationary, and you just knew what they were gonna do. I thought that was very clever. It was a really nice detail to add. So again, I gotta give them their flowers for that. So what keeps me coming back to The Last of Us? I will have to just straight up say the narrative. This narrative is by far one of the greatest I've ever experienced. I mean, from start to finish. I mean, we get, like I said, the death of Joel's daughter. We get to see that emotional pain he's going through, and then for him to, yeah, stumble upon Ellie. He was forced to take Ellie, across the nation to find this cure. Well, hopefully find this cure, but you get to see the growth between the two. Because at first, like I said, Joel, he didn't want nothing to do with it, and then you have Ellie. She didn't even trust the guy. So it was cool to see the bond that those two developed by the end of this narrative, and I loved it, because like I said, Joel became like a surrogate father to her, like a best friend to her. I thought that was well done to me. I mean, listen, the performances by Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker. I mean, y'all, it took this thing to a whole different level, and it wasn't just them either. I feel like everybody who participated on this project, the voice acting was phenomenal. I mean, the acting, the mocap, everything was just top notch. Performance wise, everything was just well done. And see, the thing about this, their vocal performances, I'm not just talking about the cutscenes. I'm talking about uh, Joel and Ellie running through cities and things like that. I mean, they're having meaningful conversations, and I feel like Ashley and Troy put everything they had into everything they had to say, and I thought those were great. I mean, not only that, but also the interactions between other characters as well. And I can't stress this enough. Everybody who participated on this project brought it. So, in closing, The Last of Us has probably been one of the greatest gaming experiences I've had in a very long time. Um, as I mentioned earlier, you had the story, unique combat, interesting characters, interesting dialogue, and also just this question that forces us to think. And if anything, it created a dialogue outside of the game. And the fact that we're still talking about it years later, that's how you know you made something good. And I feel like Naughty Dog was successful in that. But and if anything, during this entire review, I noticed that it felt like I was just singing just all praises to this game. But in reality, I have nothing bad to say about this game. From the visuals to the voice acting to the motion capture to everything. I feel like everything was on point, and I felt like they were very deliberate in what they did. There was no detail spared, and everything was intentional. The messages behind it, I thought was well done. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, there was no punches pulled. Because to exist in a world like this, there's no moral police, and I feel like they did a good job of capturing that. And say what you will about Joel's decision, which I will make a video about. But like I said, this has solidified itself in my top 5 of video games of all time. So down in that lovely comment section, I would love to hear your thoughts about it. But in the meantime, I hope you guys have an incredible day. Peace.